welcome to the Monday evening.
You love ball like I do. After Dark's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is the Field of 68 After Dark on a Wednesday night. Been a sexy, epic night of college basketball so far. Chris Childers with Jeff Goodman and the great John Henson. And gentlemen, we have had all kinds of great games all over the country, but tonight we're going to celebrate in grand fashion. We got an awesome guest to kick it off tonight, Mr. Goodman. Your guy, everybody's guy. I mean, everybody loves him. Scott Van Pelt is going to join us on the show at the Maryland game tonight. You saw him. He was happy. He was smiling. His Terrapins now have won 4 in a row. They found a groove. The last couple of weeks, they found out how to win on the road, which is a beautiful thing. They come back at home, get a great win. SVP, hello, sir. How are you? Welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark. How you feeling about those Terps?
You gotta unmute yourself, Scott. It's like he's never done TV. I mean, seriously, like he's never done this with technology.
We'll get him worked out. We'll get.
You know what the problem is?
What's that?
Problem with Scott? The problem with Scott is he has everybody do things for him. So I don't even think he can turn on a TV. I'm shocked he can turn on his phone.
He's got people that do it for him, no doubt about it. Well, we'll get Scott in here in just a minute. Maryland looked great at 76-68. They beat Wisconsin. Gillespie, 16.7 rebounds. They got a little inside, a little outside. Nice balance. They are hot, Coach Willard's team, as we work on SVP. Jeff Goodman, nice little run here lately for the Terrapins, and they got a lot of winnable games coming up.
Yeah, why doesn't my mic work? My mic's on.
Now we got him.
We hear you.
Hello, Scott Van Pelt.
The mic was always on. It was never not on. The mic was never.
We don't believe you. We do. I do not believe that you could figure this out.
No, look, hey, I welcome to Peepaw Vision, for God's sake. It's just pitiful. No one does anything for me is the issue. But your man Stanford Steve just gives me so much crap. He's like, Scott, you just have to try. Like, so here we are. Let me answer the question about
yes,
tonight.
sir. Hello.
Okay. You know, Goodman, you know that the building can be great. It was not great tonight. It was good. Good building was good tonight, not great. And it helped. They got shot makers. They got guys that can make shots now. And that's a huge deal. Like, they were good defensively last year. They just couldn't make shots. But Gillespie is fantastic. Rice, it's so good to see him healthy, making shots. Queens, you know, he's the guy that's got all the headlines coming in. But they make shots. Selton is not afraid. My man will pull from anywhere at any time. Love him. So it was a fun night. It was a really fun night. I apologize the mic didn't work, but it was a cool night in College Park.
Are you all in now on this team? And I know you're always all in, right? You're a fan. But now, after last week, going on the road to Champaign and Bloomington, and I don't care. Listen, you know, my daughter's Indiana Hoosiers aren't what we thought they were. Anybody thought they'd be, but still, winning in Bloomington is still a good win. And you know, then you come back on this one, and you know you're down, and Derek Queen's struggling from the field, and Jacoby's kind of icing his knee over there, and I don't know what was going on. He was on the sideline for a while, but they come back, and I just think their team fits together. And I never thought I'd say that with two bigs, but like Reese and Queen and Gillespie and Selton, and their team just fits together pretty well.
They're figuring it out. I mean, early in the year, Kevin was trying to figure out what are we going to do. Because honestly, you didn't mention DHS and Deshaun Harris Smith was such a big deal locally because he's a PVI kid, and they put out a zillion high level guys yearly, and Maryland hadn't gotten anybody from there. So when they got him, that was a big deal. He tonight made a huge three and played great defense, which he always does. So he contributed, but he's off the bench now, and he's a small piece as opposed to trying to be a big piece. The pieces fit together. They've got guys that can make shots. Am I all in? I was never not all in. They lost a bunch of close games. They went to Mackey. They had the lead. They lost. The Washington game was a one-off. It was awful. They had a double-digit lead in Oregon. They lose by 3. They had the lead at Northwestern. They lose with .7 on the clock. So last week was huge because they won a couple road games, and now the students are back. And as I say, the building was really good. There's still another gear for the building. They get a week off. They go to Ohio State. That'll be an interesting one because that Ohio State team came in, and Maryland beat them by about 1,000, and they're way better than that. So that'll be a tough spot. But look, John knows this. If you got guards that can make shots and you got bigs, you got a chance. So I look at it like they got a chance, man. They're in the Big Ten. Michigan State's really good. You guys pointed out they haven't played the top end of the schedule, and then their fans get all pissed off because you pointed that out. You were just pointing. It's just a fact. They played the bottom of the league, man, and their fans get mad. No one's saying they're not good. They're really good, but they haven't played Purdue, Wisconsin, Maryland. They're going to play some teams. They're going to lose. That team's not an team. They're a really good team. They're the best team in the Big Ten right now. Hear me, certain fans. But you're going to take some L. It happens.
I think Maryland personally, they have that mold of that Iowa State, that those teams that can defend at a high level and have the dynamic guards to kind of take them over the top. I saw that they're projected to be like a 7 or 8 seed. That's scary, right? A team like that and obviously they'll probably ascend up, but right now they're projected. And I always say when we were the number 1 seed, our toughest game was the 7-8, the second game of that weekend, because it was kind of an underachieving team that kind of snuck in. So Maryland kind of has that feel like they're probably going to go up a little bit in seeding, but this is a team. I mean, if they get a 4 or 5 seed, could be a force to be reckoned with. They've got the shot makers. They got the bigs. Selton Miguel was here at USF. Nobody really knew about him, but I mean, he was a monster here. I saw him play a lot. So Maryland is on a roll right now, and in the right time of the season as well, going into tournament season and in the back end of the league play.
Well, the Iowa State comparison, John, that's high praise to me, man. Good God, that team's tough as nails.
I just in the mold of
Iowa
State, just the defensive
I
pressure.
understand. Well, I mean, I'll take that. I'll take that comp. I just think that team plays so hard, and they're so hard to beat. But the point you make about the seeding, I think for the moment, I get why it is what it is. Their out of conference was awful. We understand that. But listen. You're giving people the script here. Speaking of Iowa State, where if your out of conference isn't great, but you beat the crap out of them, you can kind of game the net. But the metrics love them too. Ken Palm loves them too. So, and there's a reason why Ken Palm, I think, likes him, and I think you see it on a night like tonight. So, I don't know. I saw them compared to Michigan and Michigan seed line and Maryland seed line right now, and I'm thinking, well, I don't know how much different Michigan's resume is than Maryland. They've won a few more road games. But look, I try to avoid that honestly at this time of year because it's January. It's about to be February, but we got a whole month of conference play. The seed line will sort itself out. But the good news is about 4 games ago, Maryland fans are going, damn, are we gonna miss the tournament? And that doesn't look like that. This is a scary team potentially.
Field of 68 after dark on this Wednesday. Scott Van Pelt is with us. Go ahead, Goodman. I'm sorry, my friend. It's wanted to reset the scene.
No, you're good. You're good.
Goodman wants to bring up Hubert Davis. I've been hearing Hubert Davis in Carolina for the last 7 days. So
we're gonna get to that.
We're gonna get to that. Okay.
You want to do it now?
Let's get it out the way. Let's just get it out the way because Lord have mercy, Goodman has been on his tail. But okay, go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Well, you could do it. You're the former Carolina guy. You could give Scott the case for keeping Hubert if you'd like, and I'll go the other way and say okay, it's not good enough if every other year you're not in the NCAA tournament at North Carolina. Like it's not. And their big guys stink this year. I hate to say it, they stink. Like John Henson, you were a big guy there. You watch these guys, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault because they should not be playing in the roles that they're currently playing in. Their guards are good enough. We know that. But to me, again, if you're, and I'm not saying they should fire Hubert after this year. I'm not. So don't get that twisted. What I am saying is next year, if they don't get in the tournament, or even if they slip in the tournament this year in the first four or something like that, Hubert Davis is going to need to sustain some success rather than every other year being up, down. It's a roller coaster.
I agree. I think that, in the NIL era, things can change so fast. So you can't act too quickly because a year makes a large difference. You see, there was a lot of teams, Kentucky's and things like that. Just 1 year, different roster. Even Carolina, right? Last year for this year, it makes a big difference. So can't panic, but Carolina's definitely in a spot where the pressure's on this summer. They've got to go get some guys. I'm privy kind of to their NIL stuff, and they gave
Hold on.
Kay Tyson.
Hold on. Hold on.
Talk to me.
Hold on. Hold on.
Talk to me.
Go ahead.
Hold on. I'm older than you. All right. I
Yeah.
enjoy watching you play. You're part of what I think of when I think of Carolina. It wasn't just one. It was always two good bigs. It was obnoxious.
Yep.
Okay. It's a pain in the ass to play with. And I go back to the Lefty days, and then the Gary days, and Carolina was like, it was funny. I have little kids. I got married late in life, John, so I have younger kids, and I was telling them about. I got to pick one game a year that I got to go to, a weeknight game. And he said, "What game did you pick?" And I said, "It was always Carolina." And then I had to explain that we were in the ACC. And then I realized, Jesus, my child doesn't even understand that. And then I had to explain that to him, which is so cool. And so the reason I put my hand up and listen, I worked with Hubert. I adore the man. Okay.
Yeah.
Hand up with that. Everyone does. He's the greatest human on earth. But North Carolina's North Carolina. Like State went on a run last year and made the Final Four, and that probably saved a man's job. But you can't be once every couple years you go on a run. You're North Carolina, and I'm just amazed to think. And I watched him last night against Pitt, and it's like, and Jay calls him out, and then Jay's going to take crap because he's a Duke guy, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
No.
And so I can't wrap my head around the idea that it's okay for Carolina to be okay, or maybe every couple years they're like, you just have too many built-in advantages and you would know it because you've lived it. So who the hell am I to tell you?
Yeah, and I think next year is the pressure year. They have to do something and sustain it at a high level. And that's what I was kind of getting to with the NIL. They paid Kay Tyson. He's not even playing.
Maybe you got to give some money. Maybe you got to reach into your pocket there, Henson, and give some money to Hubert.
We have Michael Jordan. We have Michael Jordan amongst a lot of other guys who made a lot more money than me. So if they're going to go throw in the pot, I got a little bit. But until then, I'm sitting back and watching just like them.
Hey, Maryland got lucky. The Belmont guy we got is good God, Gillespie's playing his butt off.
You got the right one.
Yeah.
And I thought the guy you got, John, I thought the guy you got was going to be. I'm shocked. Like I thought, Wolf at Michigan. I thought it could be something like that. Like I thought we'd see that kind of maybe that kind of production, but I just didn't think we would not see him playing at all. That shocked me.
Yeah, that level of that step up in level. Some guys thrive, some don't. As you see this NIL era, some guys.
Yeah.
So that's this. It's a swing and a miss, and they can't swing and a miss much longer. So Hubert's going to be in Goodman's hot seat next year. So I'll be on that ACC preview show.
Yeah, you will. All right, Scott. Next one for me. You had a very flammable coach that you watched in College Park for years, named Gary Williams. I mean, you had a couple, but Gary was flammable to his players, to the referees at times. He makes Dan Hurley makes Gary look like a choir boy at times with the refs.
Yeah.
And I don't know where you stand on this. Game Day had a pretty good conversation the other day, and I thought it was good. I've made it clear where I stand, and I love Dan. I love him. I've
So to
known him
see,
25 years. I think he's arguably the best coach in the sport, but I can't watch him with the refs. I can't do it. I just think there's too much disrespect for Dan Hurley to human beings that are referees that are trying to do their jobs. And I just don't think there's a need to treat those guys that way at times. Not all the time, but more than anybody else in the country.
I agree, and I had a complete 180 on Dan Hurley. Complete 180. I was when he was at Rhodey, and he had and I'll just hand up. He had an incident with Maryland in a tournament where whatever was said, the Maryland folks would say what was said was out of bounds. Whatever. But I had a complete 180 on the guy, and I've gotten to know him a little bit. I had fantastic conversations on air, some cool conversations off, just about who he is when you talk to him like this, and you know it better than me. Completely different dude. But that, and it's not shtick, but that, like, that face and the hands behind the back and the berating of people, like, enough, man.
Yes.
Enough.
It's
And
bad.
what you need in your life is somebody. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of
After
course.
dark.
Okay.
Do your
Well, I
thing.
just go. You need someone to call you in life. You need someone to call you on your bullshit.
Yeah.
And whether it's your spouse, your athletic director, your whoever, someone has got to be able to just, like, how you, like, John, like, you have a bad game they put on the tape, right? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing in pick and roll here? Like, what? And you got to look at that. And this is a bright, thoughtful man. Like, if he was an asshole, then I just say, he's not redeemable. But he's not. He's a thoughtful, bright man who, if you show him that and you go, is this really what we're going to do for 40 minutes? Like, you can't. But you know what you do if you're him? You go like this. You go, 2 in a row, buddy.
Mm.
2 in a row.
That's it.
And
He's
there's
got
really
the
no
rings.
argument, right?
The
There's
crazy
you
thing
can hold
is,
up the
2 years ago,
but when he's screaming at the dude, though, Jeff, like, I'm the best coach in the effing sport.
That was bad.
Come on, man. Come on.
I know.
He
I'll give you the
he did
Scott
not think
Foster
that was
little
gonna. He did
C.
not think they were going to see that. He didn't think they were going to. He didn't think that was going to get out. He had to. That was funny.
Well,
But it
we
was
could
like
all read
2
lips,
years
John.
ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago, Scott, remember TV caught him saying, you're an effing clown to Jeffrey Anderson, right? And they went through their 6-game losing streak. And he admitted later on in the year in the NCAA tournament that I got my act together and I wasn't completely focused on the refs. And I started coaching my team, and look at what it did. So he's proven to be able to do this before. Look in the mirror, understand it's hurting him, and change. So, I mean, I remember in Portland, he showed me he had it written in ink on his wrist, coach your guys. He showed me. But he can't sustain that. He can't maintain this because I guess he's a Hurley, and they use that as an excuse. Well, Bobby has been much better this year.
Here's what I wonder. I lived up there in Connecticut for quite a while when I was, I live in D.C. again, where I'm from. But I lived up there, and you see what Calhoun built. And it's amazing. Like, people talk about blue bloods. And for me, I always look at it, it's Carolina, Duke, Kansas, and then, there's others. And I don't want to derail the conversation, but UConn is 1,000% a blue blood. And you can call it new money if you want, like a tech billionaire, but you know what a tech billionaire is? An effing billionaire. Okay. Like, their money might be new, but they got that money. So to me, UConn is whatever you want to call. They've won more than anybody since turn of the century. And I wonder what winning 2 in a row does. As opposed to letting you exhale, does it almost tighten, like, the grip, to feel a pressure to live up to that? And I don't think that's reasonable because he doesn't have the same team. Like, he's got, like, a bunch of pros are in the pros now, and you really threaded the needle with the portal, and the dudes you got were the perfect pieces. And that's such a difficult thing to thread. So I wonder if there's just a stress, Jeff, that increases as opposed to decreases. Like, I don't think he's a dude that's like a house money guy. That you can just relax and go, I'm good, because that's just not how he's wired to my sort of viewpoint.
Different kind of cat, and the Hurleys are a different family, but it's been weird as hell watching him writhing around the court during the preseason tournament the other day when he's saying he's the best effing coach in the country.
Right.
It makes us all kind of just root against UConn when he does stuff like that. Not good for anybody. Scott Van Pelt, our guest, Field of 68 After Dark. You've watched a lot of great college basketball this year. You love the sport. Cooper Flagg at Duke has been, oh, wow, he has been spectacular as a freshman. What do you think about this kid, his upside, his future, and what he's been so far for John Scheider and Duke?
I think what I've seen lately is just the game slow down. He looks more comfortable. Like early on, when they lost those couple of games and those preseason type stuff, man, no one's close to what they're gonna be, you know?
Sure.
And he kind of got bullied a little bit. They 2 games that, like, late possessions, he's got the ball, and it was sort of like make something happen, and it didn't work. And then you're like, let's give the guy some runway here and see if he starts figuring stuff out. He dropping 43 on people, and every other game it's some ridiculous dunk. The thing I not worry, because I don't worry, he's great. The thing I wonder about is the ACC I grew up in, which is, the 4 Carolina schools on Tobacco Road in Maryland, Virginia. And it was a smaller group, and everybody had pros and whatever else. And it's true round robin. And by the time you got to the tournament, you were, iron sharpens iron, or whatever the hell the thing is. I just wonder, like, who's he? And no disrespect to Carolina, who they play this weekend, but, like, who are you playing that's close to who you're going to play in your second game in the tournament? Who? Because the answer is probably nobody.
That was my
That's
sentiment, like, in the sense of, like, just, okay, Duke's going to run through this, and then their first test is going to be the second weekend in the tournament. That's kind of scary. You don't really know. It happened when they played Tennessee. When Tennessee came and they just grown manned them. And had they played
might be
Tennessee
the second game.
Yeah,
Might be the second game, John. To your
Might be
point, say
Maryland.
it's an 8-9. Say it's because it's going to be an 8-9 from a power conference, and it's going to be somebody that, if they have the Tennessee game was the greatest example. They had a bunch of adults, and for the longest, Duke looked down their nose at Kentucky and all that one and done, and then they're like, oh, we kind of need to do that, and now that's what they've become. And so when they get to the spring, they're younger than anybody, right? And it's great to be able to lean on Cooper Flagg because he's as advertised. But you get that team of adults that are 5th-year dudes that don't give a flying about any of your bullshit. Like, they're like, I wasn't a 5-star guy, man. They're coming for you. That's the challenge. The concern, I would think, if you're Duke, is that you've got the guy. You'll have the best player on the floor in Flagg, and you've got plenty of other really good players too. But because the ACC just stunningly doesn't have, and they play Louisville soon too, don't they? Don't they play Louisville? Like, I don't know when it is. It's soon. I thought I saw on their upcoming schedule. That's a good team, but the ACC just doesn't have the depth of
Good.
like I was just sitting here watching the end of Alabama and Mississippi State, and that league is a joke, man. It's just it's such a meat
crazy.
grinder, and Bama survives Hubbard and down at the hump, and they win by 4, and it's like any road win you get in that conference ought to be worth 1.5, I think, but I just don't. You're just not challenged in the ACC the way you are in other leagues, and that's just hard to believe. I'm saying out loud.
Hey,
It's
you
real.
love
It's
this
real.
sport as much as anybody. We know that.
Yep.
But where are you at right now with where the sport is at right now? Right, with NIL, with the
Oh,
portal,
God.
with all this. Yeah, where are you? Where I am, which is, again, I get, like, kids getting paid. I'm for it for the most part.
Uh-huh.
Some are getting a little bit more than I think they deserve. I'm worried about the sport, though. I'm concerned about it. The offseason sucks to me. I don't have fun.
Oh, God.
But then when the games get here, I'm good. I'm good.
All right, so here's what I'd say, and I want to make this clear. Every time on SportsCenter I talk about it, I have to spell this out for the people that are going to get mad and not listen. They get preemptively angry. Players 100% should be able to make money. They should make as much as they want. But the idea, like right now, that you're worried about the guy you got in the portal last year who's outperforming because somebody's coming with a bigger number is stupidity. There is no sport, no professional sport where there's unlimited, unregulated yearly free agency. There is in college basketball and there is in college football. That doesn't make any sense. And when people use the word not sustainable, that's what they mean. You can't have to re-recruit your entire roster every single year. You can't ask your boosters to be the ones that are funding all of this. And now we're going to have this 20 million bucks that we can revenue share. Okay, well then that's the baseline. And then from there, we're going to have to do what used to be the brown bags that weren't legal, but now you can do it legally, and that'll be the extra. So the problem is just what I'm saying, that it's every single year. And so, and this creates another discussion, which is, well, they can't be employees because they're not employees, they're student athletes. Okay, there has to be some sort of contract. Has to be. Oh, well, coaches can leave every year. I understand. You want to do the math on how many coaches leave every year versus how many players in the portal? We can do that if you want. And oh, by the way, you can leave too every year.
Mhm.
But if you come for 500 and then you want to go to another SEC school for $1 million, but you said you're coming for 2 years, well, I'm real sorry. Like there just has to be some mechanism whereby that the guy you're spending your dough on is going to be around for more than a year. So you said it well. Like the games are awesome. The people Maryland got, Gillespie, Selton Miguel, Rodney Rice, like these guys are doing an awesome job. Kapari's doing well. Like there's a lot of guys they've gotten, but now you're like, ooh, what if like some SEC school comes for Gillespie with a pot? Then what do we do? I mean, it's funny. I saw his pop tonight. He's like, "Hey, can I get a picture?" I was like, only if your son stays next year." I mean, like literally, that's literally what I said to his dad. And I mean, and it was just a fun, we're just joking, but I'm not joking. Like that's the space we live in now.
SVP with us on the field of 68 after dark. A happy Maryland fan, a happy Maryland alum as he went to the game tonight. 4 wins in a row. SVP, good to see you, man. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you.
Listen, I'm just watching hoops. Yeah, I know you got to let. It's probably time to let somebody else
stay
in.
through the break. You want to stay through the break and talk some more hoops? You're in. You know whatever you want to do.
It's your call. If you probably a better guest than me, but otherwise, I'm just watching UNLV and Utah State now. All right, I'm not going anywhere.
We'd love to have you. Stick
All
around.
right.
You're our only guest.
We'll take a break. We got more coming up. SVP, he's going to chill, talk some hoops on the field of 68 after dark. Stay with us.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against-the-spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythms metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
We're back here on the Field of 68 after dark on this Wednesday. Chris Childers with Jeff Goodman and John Henson and Scott Van Pelt. You can see him on the bottom right of the screen. It's like the Brady Bunch over here, but SVP is hanging out, talking some hoops with us. Great to have him. I mean, we had him for 20-something minutes, and he said, hell, I'm just watching basketball. I'll hang out with you guys. We certainly appreciate that. He was watching, as all of us were out of the corners of our eyes, Alabama on the road beats Mississippi State 88-84. They hit 15 threes in the process. They were 48% from the outside. A just glorious performance for Alabama. They've won 4 in a row. These road games, these road wins are really hard to get in the SEC. Mark Sears, their leader, 17 points, 9 assists. Gentlemen, let's talk about it. Goodman, I will start with you and let you weave Mr. SVP and John into this thing. But Alabama, the offense, Nate Oates, they continue to impress, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing was, how this Mark Sears thing was going to, kind of culminate tonight. And he came out of the gates and was very reluctant to shoot the ball, was all about getting his teammates involved. Ended with a pretty good game, right? He had 17 points, efficient shooting, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, 7 turnovers, though. But the big thing was obviously he was benched last game in the second half. And how is that relationship? I know that Mark Sears was unbelievable over the last month. Okay, I've seen him in person. He was terrific. But the one thing with Nate Oates is he's got depth. And he's not going to sugarcoat things. If you're lollygagging on defense, and if you're making poor decisions, selfish decisions on offense, which he was doing in the first half of the last game, you're not going to play. And he did it with Cliff Amore too. Both of those guys. Well, the difference was I think Cliff probably said something to him at halftime and ended up being able to get back in the game. And then he played hard and played the right way. But there was a talk after the game between Oates and Sears, and he's trying to make sure that Mark Sears is on the right page here, and a guy that's going to lead them to not only getting back to the Final Four, but winning the whole thing, because he knows, and we all know, Alabama's talent from 1 to 9 is better than anybody in the country's, better than anybody.
Yeah.
Their upside is high.
Yeah,
they haven't played that way. And they've still been on a pretty good winning streak here for the most part. And this was a really good win in Starkville.
They're deeper than anybody in the country, I think. Like when I watch them, I mean, Auburn give them a run for the money. Like they just wave after wave of dudes on those teams. But it's interesting what you said. You used the word leader, and I think that's right. But you also mentioned just like selfish shots. I have no idea how to know what a selfish shot is in Alabama's offense. I really don't. I'm not
kidding.
being cute. It's
kidding.
Like with their analytic approach and their 3-point heavy approach, like it's almost like a bad shot as if you don't take the shot. And there doesn't seem to be any, like the light's green perpetually, I think it's about effort on the other end. And John would know because Carolina played up tempo and scored tons of points. Just because we play high scoring games doesn't mean we're not checking people on the other end. Like if you don't guard against Bama or Kentucky, they're going to score 120 on you. You know what I mean? So like if it's 90s, that's probably actually a pretty decent defensive effort. So that was the thing I was curious about. And like I think how many did Hubbard get tonight for Mississippi State? 1 million.
38.
He went nuts.
Yeah, 38.
God, man, he was pulling from everywhere. But Sears is way too important to not be the guy for them moving forward. That's my perception of it.
He's just not a leader. He's not a big-time vocal leader, and I think Nate would have liked to see more from that. And Chris Youngblood, who he thought was going to be the vocal leader and wants to be and has it in him, hasn't played well enough until tonight. Tonight was the first game.
He was good tonight.
That Chris Youngblood and Henson can go from here because he saw him at South Florida. That Chris Youngblood looked like the AAC Player of the Year, 23 points, 7 of 10. He could be their best shooter now that Reitzel's out for the year.
Yeah, USF got poached to oblivion. They lost their 3 best guys, and that's just the nature of the beast that we're in right
That's
now.
what
But
he
yeah,
was talking
Alabama.
about earlier.
Yeah, and you know there was a play they showed. I guess the play that Coach Oates had brought up where Sears falls on the ground. He doesn't kind of gets up slowly, jogs back, and I think that's where he got yanked. And then he said he didn't like his body language. So as a coach, man, you got to make that decision. And if I'm on that team and he's holding Sears accountable like this, I mean, it's only going to get us even more kind of juiced up and ready and want to listen and be a team. If your best player can take that accountability and come out and play like he played tonight. You saw when they were, Coach Oates gave him a pat on the back when he hit a big time 3, so that's just part of growing as a team. And don't look now, they've won 12 out of 13, and they're going to need to rack up some more wins because down the stretch they got Missouri, Kentucky, Mississippi State again, Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn. So this last stretch for them is going to be absolutely insane. So they need to stack up some wins. I don't know if they get out of this scot-free, but right now they're rolling. And we kind of talked about Alabama earlier in the season. They were still a top 5 rated offense. They were shooting 30% from the 3. So this is kind of what Alabama could be and has been lately.
They've won 4 in a row. They've won 4 in a row while teaching Mark Sears a lesson. I think that tells you everything you need to know about where Alabama is right now. And even the state of Alabama, we saw Auburn go on the road and beat LSU earlier. I mean, SVP, I was talking to Jay Billis earlier this morning on the show that I do at Rick Neuheisel on Channel 84 on Full Ride. And he's like, that environment that Bruce Pearl has created, every bit as good as Cameron or anywhere else you have in college basketball. I mean, does that not blow your mind?
Yes and no. Like the thing about Auburn is, the loveliest village on the plains, as they call it. Like they love football, but they love sports. And in this NIL age, they got tons of dough for football, but they got plenty for Bruce. And on the pod I do with my guy Stanford Steve, like Jimmy Patsos is one of our all-time favorites. And I like a Patsos imitation about Bruce Pearl and him saying, Bruce has got it. He's got a perfect situation down here, Scotty. He's got it. Like they love football, but they love basketball too. And he's got a gym, Scotty. The jungle. It's like 10 grand. It's unbelievable. You recruit Atlanta, right? You get a couple of kids in there. He's like Pearl. He's like he's never leaving. And why would you? You get great support. How many does that building hold? Like 10, 12? Whatever it is,
It's 10.
Just enough to be loud as
that's
hell.
what I thought.
Yeah.
So 2 things happen. Number one, it's intimate, right? Like the thing about Cameron is it's just so small. And I always say, like, in my opinion, Fog Allen's the best just because it's like 2 Camerons. But the thing about a small venue is it's like a bandbox and it's right on top of you. And then the other thing it does is it creates an exclusivity where you can't get in. And then what do college people want? If they're told you can't get into this bar, what are you going to do? You're going to stand in line and get in the bar, right? So it's like, and oh, by the way, also they're really good. So the combination of the energy of Bruce, a passionate fan base, a ton of talent, a really engaging, fun style to watch and to play in, I would have to think. I mean, they got the grease hot, man. Like the Auburn is really, really good. And then push comes to shove in the tournament, and it's what it always is every year in March. It's your matchup. Like, do you end up playing somebody in a rock fight that makes it a game you just don't feel comfortable playing? You just can't get it into the 80s. Like, can you win a game in the 60s? In March, can you win a game like, you know what I'm saying? If a team can force its style on you, that's what I always wonder about when it comes to Auburn, Kentucky, Alabama, all these teams. I think the answer is probably yeah, but that's just always the question you run into when it gets to March. But man, Auburn is just they've got everything going the way you'd hope. I would say
They're
Goodman
relentless.
improved. Yeah. Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, they're relentless. I mean, when I watch the game, I think pressure bust pipes. When I see Auburn play, I'm like pressure bust pipes. They put that pressure on you. They push the offense out. Their hands in the lane. They're coming down. They're fast breaking. They're dunking on you, throwing the ball. Like then you got Broom. They weren't double teaming early. He was killing LSU's bigs. They switched on him. He killed the other guy. I mean,
How was he tonight?
are.
Was he good tonight? Was he good tonight, John?
He
I'm
was
sorry to
good.
interrupt you, but like I didn't.
Awful
How
first
much?
half and great. He was terrible.
Yep.
He was like 3 for 13 first half. Couldn't make a shot, and he was He was National Player of the Year good second half. But he doesn't. I was there the other day. He's still not moving. He's not moving like he's 100% yet. He's not.
But the reason I ask is because the game he missed like a Mississippi State game, I want to say, and they beat the hell out of him. And it was just like they could go smaller, and they have so much depth and talent that you don't miss. I mean, that's not right, but you can more than just survive a National Player of the Year being out, right? And then he comes back against Tennessee, and he's obviously not right. That's why I asked John, like, what did he look like tonight? Because I obviously didn't see it. But he's like National Player of the Year good when he's right.
Yeah, second half he
Cooper
kind of
was.
took over when the game kind of. I wouldn't say the game got close, but LSU had some good possessions, and I mean he got an and one. He got fouled a couple times, and he kind of sealed the game at the end. And with the ankle injury, especially one of his severity, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get him back fully. I mean, it's probably swelling, it's painful, but he's fighting through it. Being that this is last year, it seems, and yeah, I just can't get over how just impressive. I mean, I can't see many teams beating them on a bad night. That's how I see Auburn. And then the Houston win, Houston beating them looks just even more impressive by the day. So Auburn is they're my favorite to win it. Obviously with the matchups and things like that, but they can beat you fast, they can beat you slow, they can beat you above the rim, they can beat you below the rim, they can beat you behind the arc, they can bully you, or they can finesse you. So they're going to be tough.
Good combo.
Yeah.
All right. Gun to your head, all of you guys, right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you 3 teams. You can pick somebody else if you want, but I'm going to say to win the whole thing, and I know matchups, all that. We don't know that. You got to pick one. To me, you're picking from these 3. Duke, Auburn, Alabama. I think those are the 3 that you're picking one of those 3. Am I forgetting anybody? Go ahead.
Houston.
Scott. Not Maryland. You can't choose the Terps, all right? Terps are not in the conversation.
Houston.
I don't think Houston's in it. No, I don't. Look at who they've beaten, Scott. Look at who they've beaten. Other than Kansas, which was one of the flukiest wins I've ever seen in all my years of watching or covering college basketball. I've never seen. I know. I got you. But look at their resume. And now, again, you got to remember, I saw them out in Vegas. They weren't very good. They were not very good.
Okay.
And I saw them play 3 times out there. They've gotten better because Uzon's gotten a lot better. I still don't think they're in that conversation with those 3 teams.
They might not have enough. They might not have enough shot makers. Like the other night watching Iowa State at Arizona, and I was curious. Like I mean, I don't look at everything through the gambling lens, but when you're the home team and you're favored and you're unranked and the team's number 3 in the country, like sort of steering you in a direction, so to speak. I'm talking about when Arizona won, and of course it took a love 3 and then the overtime for them to win. But when I watch Iowa State, like I feel like they grind you into the ground, and I like Jones a lot. Like actually, they got more shot makers, I feel like, this year than they had in years past. But I feel like Iowa State and Houston are teams that I just feel like they could certainly be like strong second weekend teams. And once you get there, can you win 2 more once you get to that weekend? I think both those teams could. I really do.
I love Iowa State.
I like Iowa State.
To be honest.
I like Iowa State as well.
Iowa State would be my 4th team. They would be, if you said, hey, you got to pick from these 4, I probably should have included Iowa State. But let's do this. Let's play the game of anybody. Anybody. We're not limiting it to those 3. Who are you taking? We'll start with you, Henson. Who are you taking today? You got to put all that money you made in the league. You got to put it on somebody. Who are you putting it on?
If I had to take all the money I made, I'm putting it on Auburn. I mean, it's just if we're talking money, I'm going to go Auburn. Duke, we talk about SVP. SVP said, "Hey, look, they're in the ACC. They're going to play Clemson." I looked at schedule up. They actually don't play anyone else but Clemson. That could maybe be a game for them. So, they might run through the ACC tournament, and then second weekend they might get a an underachieving Vanderbilt team, right? That it's Vanderbilt is 7, 8, 9, and then now what, right? Like Vanderbilt's tough, and the iron has been sharpened, as SPV said with the SEC. The iron has been sharpened all year, so Duke is not going to scare any SEC team. I promise.
They're not going to scare any SEC team.
You go.
I would love to see if we have Alabama on this side of the bracket, and then you got Auburn on this side of the bracket. Then they meet at the end in San Antonio. If you're asking me to put money on it, it's got to be Auburn. I mean, we talked about it. Jedi Broom is as good and valuable as anybody, but they prove they can win without him. I mean, that's the thing that this team showed us here in recent memory over the last couple of weeks. They were winning games in a league that is such a bitch, and they were doing it without him. And they got, Mazzara, they got Jones, they got Pettiford off the bench, they got Hudson, they got Johnson, they got dudes they can throw at you. Like John just said, inside, outside, they can beat you off on the transition. If you're going to bet on one team right now, I think it's got to be Auburn. But wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't it be something? Bama here, Auburn here, and they meet at the end.
Scott, who you got?
It's hard not to land on Auburn as well. I do really love Alabama. Their ability to, I guess, because of the way they play with the pace and their ability to get streaky, it could feel like you have them right where you want them, and they're just laughing because it's like, cool, you're up 6. By the next TV timeout, you could be down 8. Like their ability to avalanche you, and I'm speaking of Alabama right now. I mean, if just to be a dissenting voice, I think the depth of that team, like my guy Stanford Steve, who Jeff you know well, like he goes with game day, and for college football. But when he was down there in Tuscaloosa in the fall, he went to go see an Oats practice, and he came back, and you know him well, Jeff. He comes back and he sits in the room. You sat in that room with us, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Bro, Alabama dudes." Okay. And I'm like, I said, "Oh, go ahead." And he's like, "It's just one after another with them."
Yeah.
And I mean, I just watched them tonight beat like a Mississippi State team that I don't know how many teams they would have lost to tonight, but it ain't many. And they lost to Bama. So I'll be a dissenting voice and say them just because also because they made it to the Final Four a year ago. I think there's something about the learned behavior, right? The process of learning what it is to win 6, man. And look, my team once in my life, I saw them do it. It's so damn hard to win 6 games in a row. So damn hard. Because you're gonna have a game where you play like crap and you have to survive it, and then you're gonna play 2 or 3 teams that are just as good as you, that maybe they play better than you. You know what I mean? Like so, these teams that we're talking about from the SEC, and it's loaded, they might get 3 or 4 teams the Elite 8, but you still got to win 6 games, man. And 6 is so many effing games. It's so many.
I'm going Duke. Guys.
Yeah.
I am. They got the best player in the country, and they got the guy that you
Too
put the
young.
ball in his hands, and he's
young.
not young. He's not. You can't convince me he's really 18, Scott. He is not 18 years old. He is not fucking 18 years old the way he plays. He does everything.
He's great.
And he does.
He's great.
He doesn't guard like he's 18. He doesn't pass like he's 18. He doesn't make decisions like none of it. His basketball IQ is off the charts, and they have the right team around him. They've got a really good shooter in Con Knipple, who also, by the way, does not play like a freshman. They've also got Kaman Maluach, who does not play defense like a freshman and is a game changer. He's John Henson on the defensive end of the court in some ways. And they've got some good veterans that when John Shire put this team together, I remember I called them. I'm like, what are you doing? Mason Gillis, Cyan James, like what are you doing with this team? Like he said, we're building this team differently. We are building it to protect Cooper Flagg and to fit around Cooper Flagg. And they've got defined roles. And it's crazy because Caleb Foster doesn't even do anything. A lot of people thought he was going to be their leading scorer. He doesn't even get off the bench hardly anymore. Proctor knows his role, and I think has kind of come to grips with who he is instead of playing for, being a lottery pick and all that. He fits his role. But to me, again, the differentiator here is, yes, Auburn's got more overall players, but their best player is a guy you still got to get the ball to in the post. Duke's best player is still, you can give him the ball and go say, hey, make a play. Just make a play, whether it's for your teammates, whether it's for you, and I trust them to do it. Any guards?
Okay, it doesn't bother you that they're not going to play anybody. That's Auburn and Alabama and Iowa State and Houston are going to go through a friggin' gauntlet.
And they
And
could be worn down. Scott, they could be worn down.
I was just going to say, you could argue that means the gas tank is empty and Duke's is daisy fresh. And I'm not arguing that. That's a fair point.
You can tinker.
I just think
John Shire can also tinker, keep everybody happy because they're going to be winning games by 15. Henson's nodding his head. I can't wait to hear what he has to say about this.
Well, let's.
Yeah,
Dagan's yelling. So, Scott, if you want to hang out, feel free.
Go.
By all means.
This time I got to go. I'll come back and do this
Okay.
anytime you want that I'm not
Beautiful.
working. This is I love you guys and I love what you guys do for the sport. And whatever you need, the answer is yes. But right now I got to go.
Love you too, man.
Well,
love
thank
you
you
too.
very much.
Thank
you,
man. I
Joining us,
appreciate
Scott
it.
Pleasure,
Pelt.
John.
Thanks for coming out.
Thanks,
We
guys.
will
Yeah, it's
continue
my
the
pleasure.
conversation when we come back right here on the Field of 68 After Dark.
A sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that. Would you be surprised to find out that the Field of 68 is home to more than 35 podcasts? More than 25 team-specific podcasts that are hosted by the people that know what fans want the most. The Goodman and Humble podcast, the DTF podcast, the A10 Insider podcast, and the Mountain West podcast. But wait, there's even more. The Field of 68 will be launching the ACC Insider podcast this year. Subscribe to this channel and come along for the ride.
All right, back here, Field of 68 After Dark. Chris Childers with the wonderful John Henson and Mr. Jeff Goodman. A lot of basketball tonight. Texas and Ole Miss played each other. Ole Miss takes on Chris Beard, takes on his old team that let him go because of some weird crap that happened. But Ole Miss gets a win at home. Also tonight,
You can call it that. You can call it weird crap. Sure.
We don't need to get too well, unless you want to. I don't know, but it was
what
bizarre.
Are you doing there with your ring, Henson? What are you flashing your ring?
Don't.
What is
you can't even
that?
see it. This is Carolina, man. I just want to make y'all don't forget, man. Don't forget. My mother put it on actually.
That's old Carolina. That's old school Carolina.
Yeah.
See those diamonds right there? You know what I'm saying?
Those are days gone by. It's like I remember
I
when
hate you guys.
Carolina didn't suck. I mean, it was times have changed, my friend. The times, like Bob Dylan, they are a
Boy, have they.
changing.
Yeah.
It's okay. Your history will stay intact, but it's a different era we're living in right now. Kidding aside, great night tonight. Houston was off the charts, beat West Virginia. The defense is the defense. They did it on the road. They had a great first half. Calvin Sampson continues to impress, Jeff Goodman.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as I just said to Scott when he mentioned Houston being in the mix for top 3 or 4 team, I just don't know if I'm there. I don't know if I'm there because I don't think beating – and it's crazy to say this because West Virginia's gotten some really good wins this year, but I just don't believe beating West Virginia is that impressive anymore because I think it's caught up with the Mountaineers being without Tucker DeVries. I think the book is out, right? You just limit Javon Small, and they don't have enough around him. Hansberry's good, but he's moved up the scout, and they just don't have enough. So look at Houston's resume, guys. And again, they've lost to good losses, right? For the most part, Auburn, Alabama, San Diego State. They haven't lost since San Diego State. I saw that game in Vegas. But who have they beaten, guys, other than Kansas in a very lucky win? I think you could say lucky. I mean, Kansas pissed it away multiple times. But, like, give me another win that absolutely impresses you. Give me one. Go ahead. Give me one. There isn't. There isn't.
They don't have
I
it,
look
John,
at
but they still look dominant. But go ahead.
yeah, I have them as a team that's a lot. I mean, regardless of what you want to say, they beat the best team in the country by far on a neutral floor. But they have that potential. They lost to Alabama by 5. But for me, I'm just looking at what they do against teams that they're supposed to beat. Holding to 49 points. They held Utah to 36 points. You know, like TCU 46 points. Like, these are these aren't great teams, but they're doing what they're supposed to do. We're not penalizing Duke because they're run through the ACC. You know what I'm saying? So why are we treating them differently? So I think Houston is going to be right there at the end. They have some games coming up too as well. Baylor, Arizona, Iowa State. So we'll get to see if they're really about that. But for now, I can't do anything but praise them. I mean, they're doing what they need to do after that loss to San Diego State. They've shaped into form.
All right, time for our toast of the evening to take it home on this Wednesday. I'm just going to toast the state of Alabama. They are serious about their basketball. They win tonight. Both teams. Auburn beats LSU 87-74. Alabama beats Mississippi State on the road 88-84. And we talked about it with SVP, John and Jeff. Everybody's in love with those two teams. They are the focal point of college basketball. And for a guy like me that has made his living covering college football, it still blows my effing mind. So a toast to the state of Alabama. Go ahead, John, quick.
I'm going to Jai Broom on a bum ankle, 26-16. Down the stretch, essentially carried him to a win. I think he's only going to get healthier, and Auburn will be better.
All right, I'm going to toast. I'm going to UIC. UIC went to Bradley and beat the first place Bradley Braves in the Valley. And UIC is coached by first-year head coach. He was the former head coach at UAB, Robert Eason, who also, by the way, has a Maryland connection. He was a Gary Williams assistant. So UIC, Robert Eason.
The Flames. I love that. From Chicago, Illinois, Chicago. That's the best. In the old Italian neighborhood is where that school is. That's cool. All right, we are done. John Henson, a pleasure to work with you as always. Jeff Goodman, a little slice of heaven. That's it on SiriusXM. Stick around on the web. The afters are next. It's the Field of 68 After Dark.
We're live. It's the afters. Hit the chat.
I'm not getting close to any bear.
My career high on the court is 28.
All right, back here on the Afters Field of 68. We had a fun show tonight. Scott Van Pelt, fantastic. Just a pleasure to hang out with SVP. Wasn't it great just to pick his brain about what I love about SVP is getting him in this kind of setting. And when you're asking him the questions, he's not the one that's doing the asking. You can really kind of get inside of his mind about this sport that he loves, Jeff. And I think that was a pretty fun opportunity tonight.
Can I give you a quick story before
Please.
Of how much Scott Van Pelt helped me? I mean, first of all, he was key in me getting to ESPN. Wow. I always kind of thank him for that. But when I was there, the first couple of years, I go on SportsCenter, and it was like Henson. It was like the last play. Like if I screwed up and said something and stumbled on my words or anything like that, I couldn't get past it. It would just frustrate me. Like I couldn't get past it. I'd be thinking about it. And I went on with Van Pelt plenty, and I remember I went on one night, and he wasn't very good. He was stumbling his words. He was screwing up left and right. And he's just laughing at himself. He's just making fun of himself the whole time. And he knew he wasn't really good, but he was just like, who gives a shit? And since then, that's kind of how I've been. Like, if he can do it, he's not going to be perfect and not worry about it and just move on and laugh at himself and make fun of himself. Like, why can't I? And that's what makes him so great. he's honest, refreshingly honest, but not a guy who's going to like go after people. He can do it in a way where he can be real and not offensive. Like, I haven't figured that out. I wish I could, but I can't.
Yeah.
You know,
It is kind of amazing where you can.
Yeah,
it's a respect that gets built over time, John. But it was a lot of fun to pick his brain tonight.
He's sharp too, man. He's sharp. So that was nice. Just to hear him, chat about hoops, man. You see him on TV all the time, and he's a real hoops head. So that's refreshing.
All right, let's bring Dagan in here. Dagan is our esteemed producer, and he's been watching the comments on YouTube all night to see what everybody is saying out there. Dagan, get to the microphone, my friend. What's everybody saying? What's on people's minds on this Wednesday evening?
Well, hello, gentlemen. This is our second after, so chat. Drop us some questions in there. We'll get to them if we can. But one thing I want to hit on, or two things actually I want to hit on, games we didn't get to tonight. One is Texas Ole Miss. Obviously, you mentioned it a little bit, Childers, but just kind of want to get your thoughts on that game, guys, quickly here before some chat questions rolling.
Hey,
go ahead,
start?
Henson. I mean,
right,
well, here's the thing.
You know,
Chris Beard taking on Texas, and we kind of alluded to it a second ago, John. Like, for Chris, when he got hired by Chris Del Conte, they got the new arena, they got the whole thing. Like, they hired Chris Beard to make them great, to make them elite. Gets weird with the girlfriend. He gets fired. He goes to Ole Miss, and he's building at Ole Miss what he was supposed to be building at Texas, and we saw them win tonight.
Yeah. Just his journey. When you look at his journey, he's a damn good coach. He would be a good coach in the little league 8-year-olds, and he'd be a good coach in the NBA, and he's a good coach in college. He's just that good. He has a system. He holds his players accountable, and he's doing that in Ole Miss. And I think Ole Miss is loving everything he's doing, and he's got Ole Miss rolling, right? Like, we don't really talk about Ole Miss as a basketball school, but they're ranked in the top 25. He beat his former team. I don't know how much juice was behind that, but Texas, hey, if you're going to live by the freshman, you're going to die by the freshman. And Trey Johnson struggled mostly throughout the game, came through at the end a little bit, but that's who they rely on, him and Pope, and they didn't play well, and that's kind of, Texas is not a 3-5 team. I mean, that's the scary part about the SEC. You put them in a different conference. I think we're looking at Texas in a whole different light. I think they're like the last team in the SEC they have in. I think that makes 13. But yeah, they're far from a 3-5 team in the conference, and it's just unfortunate. The SEC is just so stacked. It's going to be tough to eke out some wins if you're not, consistent, and they have a small margin of error as a team, and tonight it showed.
Yeah, I mean, Beard, you look at what he's done, right? I mean, at Little Rock, he did it.
Mm-hmm.
He took a brand new team and took him to the NCAA tournament. Obviously, you saw what he did at Texas Tech, taking him to the national title game at Texas Tech. That's insane. And he also took him to Elite Eight, so that wasn't a fluky thing. Then he takes over Texas, and he's got him en route to being, again, I mean, if he was still there, you're talking about them having a chance 2 years ago to go to a Final Four. And instead, it's Rodney Terry, who's on the opposite end of the sidelines right now. And as Chris Beard is ascending with Ole Miss right now, Rodney Terry's trying to fight for his job at this point.
Yeah.
But I still say if Chris Beard, everything hadn't happened at Texas, you'd be talking about him potentially winning an NCAA title in Austin.
100%.
And I don't know if he can do that at Ole Miss. Yeah, I'm not sure he can do it at Ole Miss.
Maybe he can.
Just making them relevant every year as a Final Four contender. I think Ole Miss is similar to Texas Tech for him in a lot of ways.
I think he can win it all at Ole Miss, and I think he could have won it all at Texas Tech. I think he's that good. The Texas thing is weird, though, and I wonder, like, when you see him on the sideline, what is going through Chris Del Conte's head? What is going through Rodney Terry's head? I mean, Rodney was there to be his assistant.
You know what's going through Del Conte's head? He probably should have waited a little bit longer, suspended him, waited for the thing to get cleared up, which it eventually was, and then you reinstate him after the season when it's, football
And nobody
season,
would have cared.
and nobody would have cared. Nobody would have cared.
Nobody would have cared.
That's right.
Yeah, it was
You might have, for a
fumble.
day. For a day, you would have gotten crucified nationally.
That's it.
Then the story would have went away.
He was just a perfect fit, and you don't find that often in coaches. He was just a perfect fit, and it could take a decade before they get another perfect fit. Because schools tend to keep the guys that they like, and so good coaches are hard to come by.
Field of 68 after dark. We are going to get back to Dagan. He's got more comments on the YouTube channel rolling in. Dagan, what you got, sir?
I do. This one comes from the chat. Kevin Lucas wants to know who's been more disappointing this season, Cincinnati or Kansas State?
Oh, boy.
I'll go Kansas State. I'll go Kansas State. I just think because of the success that they had last year, we kind of, threw them into that pot of being a, program that's on the rise, maybe a top tier program. And they just haven't been that. Another just NIL casualty, right? They paid the guys, they just might have paid the wrong guys. So that's just part of the game in this era. You see it in the NBA. Phoenix Suns are paying 3 guys $70 million each, and they're not barely in the playoffs. That's going to start happening in college as well.
Yeah, I'll go Cincy. I'll go Cincy with this one. Both are disappointing for different reasons. You're right. Kansas State had a bigger payroll. I just didn't have as much confidence that they fit together well. Like, you just looked at the roster construction and you were like, all right, where's their 3-man? They got too many 4s and 5s. Just doesn't make sense to me. Where Cincy had most of their players back from a year ago, and where I think Wes Miller might have made a mistake, and it might not have mattered at the end of the day, was he played a cupcake schedule in non-conference when you had most of your guys back, and you might have been able to get some good wins early, get some confidence instead of false confidence, beating the likes of Arkansas Pine Bluff and Northern Kentucky and Alabama State and Howard and some of those teams, and not being ready for, the gauntlet to some degree of the Big 12. I mean, they have 2 wins in the Big 12 right now? I mean, they're 2-7 right now in the league. I mean, 2-7. They're in major trouble.
I talked to Wes Miller on Monday. I had him on my show, and he's in good spirits. Certainly this team's had its ups and downs, but I kind of asked him, what is Cincinnati? When I was a kid growing up, I had a reverence for that program. I had a reverence for Bob Huggins. That Bearcat logo meant something to me. It really, living in the Midwest, it was, one of those logos you could kind of see on everybody. Even the casual basketball fan recognized Cincinnati. They're in the Big 12 now, and I think ultimately that's a good thing. But what is their identity as a basketball program anymore? Like, what are they?
Kenyon Martin's my favorite player coming up. So.
Do they have a good NIL?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they?
They do.
I mean, you just think about those teams that, they were just nasty, athletic, the James Whites, and, they were just a nasty school. And so that was kind of their identity with Bob Huggins. So now, they don't really have that identity. But, when Cincinnati's playing, for some reason, man, you still have those thoughts and you tune in. You watch the game. I don't know. They still have that kind of appeal to me. So, they have to take on, I think, Coach Miller, who's also a close friend of mine as well. They've got to just go through that gauntlet before conference play, and they've got to see what they are, who they got, because conference play starts, and now you're backpedaling, you're reeling, you're trying to figure out lineups, who can do what, and now you're 2-7. So if you figure that out in the first couple weeks, now we're talking, right? Now you can sit back and, like a team like Maryland, right? Maryland didn't really see much competition early. They took a little downswing. They had to figure it out. Now they're, trending up. So got to play some teams, got to know what you got early on in this college basketball game. If not, then you're in trouble.
All right, Dagan, let's get back to some questions on YouTube. Dagan, what you got, sir?
This one's going to be quick from both you guys. My guy TK in the chat wants to know, Illinois at Nebraska tomorrow. Make your pick.
Illinois.
To win or the spread? What are we doing?
I don't know the spread, so just to win.
Illinois is 3.5. I just looked at 3. Yeah, for sure. Nebraska did not look good to me last game. I wasn't impressed with them. I watched that game against was it Wisconsin? Yeah, they didn't look good. And they've lost what 6 in a row now.
Yeah, they're trending
So,
down. They need it.
but Nebraska, it's a tough. I'll take Illinois to win it. But it's not going to be an easy place to play by any means.
And they're probably not going to have Ivisic in this one. Tomislav, I would assume he's got mono. I can't imagine he'll be available tomorrow. So they're going to be shorthanded, and they're going to need a little bit more. Yeah, Morez Johnson was pretty good last game. They'll need more from him, and they got enough. They should be. But Nebraska's sneaky. It's a sneaky place to play, not an easy place to play. Their fan support is real.
Nothing like a little mono during the season to screw up your plans. I mean, seriously, I'm sure I know Brad well. I'm sure he's just a lot of 4-letter words under his breath.
Little frat house mono.
Oh my God.
Frat house mono.
I mean, that's the thing. How the hell did he get it? Was he sharing, sodas with some girl? I mean, who knows what the hell was going on? All right, last question of the night from Dagan. Dagan, what you got?
Yep, final one from me. Nathaniel Charles wants to know, do you think Creighton can win the Big East? They moved to 8-2 tonight with a win over Xavier.
Ooh. Man, I would have said no chance.
What do you think? No?
Yeah. I would have said no shot in hell a month ago. Now it's like, all right, UConn. I mean, shoot, they almost lost to DePaul tonight. I mean, there was a moment there, middle of the second half, where we're like, I don't know. And Marquette hasn't looked nearly as dominant. I think St. John's is my favorite right now, even though they can't shoot the ball. I would probably put my money on Rick Pitino and a team that plays defense and plays hard as shit. And, yeah, they're not going to be great making shots, but they'll make enough, I think. So I would go St. John's. I don't think Creighton wins it. I don't think they win it.
Yeah, I don't think they win it, but fortunate enough for them, they'll be able to decide their own destiny. They've got Marquette, UConn, and St. John's all coming up within a game of them. So this will be decided without much hoopla per se.
All right, gentlemen, let's wrap it up for the evening. Dagan, great job as always. Trevor, we appreciate everything you do. For Jeff Goodman, John Henson, I'm Chris Childers, and we'll see you next time tomorrow on the Field of 68 After Dark. Everybody, you have a great evening. Get some sleep. Thanks, everybody.